I would like to invite Christopher Flores to join me on stage. He's the head of Johnson & Johnson's Consumer with responsibilities for innovation, but he was previously, for quite a long time, Global Head of External Innovation for Discovery Sciences at Janssen Research and Development. He's been with J&J since 2002 with a focus on neuroscience and pain, and he's flown in from the US to be here with us today. Thank you very much, Chris, for being here.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
Now, you're a pharmacologist and a researcher, and you're also a senior industry figure. So I'm going to bounce a sort of similar question off you. I bounced off of the others in a way. Researchers typically pursue excellence and innovation for its own sake. Industry has to balance its books, as we've just been saying. How do you see the trade-off between innovation and profit?
I think we can have it both. And I'm seeing the glass as relatively half full in this regard. So when I left my former career as a university professor just after 2000 to join industry, I found it in, frankly, a state of crisis. We all know that by then we were at an all-time low in approvals. And it was said here earlier in the discussion you just had with Greg and Michelle, I think it's all about incentives, and they're probably not the right incentives at that time. And it affected all of us, whether we were on the, the business end of the industry or the research end. And I think arguably two things happened at that time. And I think Johnson & Johnson, to its credit, is the world's largest healthcare company, assumed its mantle of leadership and made a conscious decision that we were going to set the bar very high for innovation. And because we realized it was a long, risky road. And by the time we got to fruition, the standard of care would have been substantially different. And so we aimed very high on that bar. And the other thing that I think we took a leading role in doing is embracing the open innovation revolution that arguably may be in part responsible for saving us all. And we launched several innovation centers on the west and east coast of the US, here in Europe, as well as in Asia Pacific. We instituted J-Labs, an accelerator model, and we embraced the concept that we couldn't do it alone. When I joined the company, we kept our secret secret, and you could have been strung up for even discussing the possibility of doing the kinds of things we're doing now. And one of the last things I did in my role heading external innovation for Discovery Sciences was to be engaged in a negotiation with an erstwhile competitor talking about sharing 500,000 compounds of our small molecule library. I mean, heretical, right? But this was the world in which we found ourselves. So I think by setting the bar high in innovation, by embracing an open innovation approach, we had it both.
What's driven that change? What's driven that change in mentality? Is it the speed of technological advance? Is it opportunity? Is it absolute external demand, obligation to react to a changing world?
Yeah, great question. So I think it's a combination of necessity. We could frankly no longer afford to do it the way we were doing it, and common sense. And it was no secret at the time, a lot of us were doing the same things, the same exact things, screening the same target with more or less the same kind of molecules, investing in the same kind of basic research. And we realized that at that end of the pipeline, where the risk was so high, where there was so much uncertainty, and where there was really not a lot of IP that had to be owned ultimately, we could collaborate. And I think we're all better for having done that.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Now, I know that you've got particular interest in sort of technological innovation and so on. Where are the areas we've been looking at it over the last couple of days here, as we know, in terms of cancer prevention, digital patient, and so on, vaccines. What opportunities do you see out there that excite you as a man now who's got long experience of being able to work with a big organization in terms of pushing things forward? What excites you? What would you like to see moving forward? What are the things that really get you out of bed?
Yeah, so I think what excites me is a number of things that we've been talking about at the Congress this week. The incredible technological advances and access to data, particularly patient and consumer data. Of course, the challenge is what we're going to do with that, how we utilize the analytics to create
Okay, well,
knowledge
tell me how you
of the
find, what
information.
other ways you're going to deal with that? You're a man who's at the forefront of this sort of thing, so what are your feelings about the best ways of making use of big data, patient-reported outcomes and so on? What's your feeling about where it is and where we're going in terms of finding the best ways of using it?
Right, so I think it comes back to another theme that was mentioned at the outset of this session, partnership. We're finding ourselves in conversations with partners who we never would have considered as collaborators back in the day, you know, and together we're contributing our technological expertise, our access to the data, and I think there's still a big opportunity to get better at it, but it's going to inform another key theme here, which was prevention, and I would say even interception. And again, at Johnson & Johnson, we've established a disease interception accelerator, whereby these kinds of patient data can inform intervening earlier in the process based on risk factors that we learn about, such that, you know, the heirs to our contributions today will wonder why it was that we waited for patients to get sick, you know, back then, before we treated them. So I think partnership is going to be key here.
Jane Griffiths was on one of the panels yesterday from, as you know very well, Janssen. And she expressed almost a sense of, not impatience, but this speed of development that changed things so fast. We've had some recent examples, obviously, in a number of breakthrough treatments. Pierre Mullion, who's now the head of IMI, made the point, though, that the systems are intrinsically very complex, and therefore one can't expect instant overnight change in everything, because it's not just a question of technology, it's a question of technology matching the overall health systems and so on. What's your view of the way that technology can speed things up? Is there a risk of technology moving faster than the systems? Is there an ability for the systems to adapt to the technology? Should that be the way it happens?
Yeah, I think the short answer is surely yes. We're seeing that already. And I think outstripping other questions of morality and ethics as well. So this is something we have to tackle from multiple angles. And that's what keeps me up at night. You asked earlier. It's frankly the rate of technological change. I mean, just in a short while, we've seen, for example, it takes several years and $1 billion to sequence a human genome, and now you can do it in a day for $1,000. And the flip side of that is consumers or patients who only recently came to know what a gene was, or even that there was DNA at the heart of it, now have access to that information. And again, coming back to an earlier theme of the conference, the patient centricity, are now driving the bus. Which I think is a fascinating dynamic. So frankly, I think we have to all learn fast how to integrate all of these inputs so that we can make the most of the technological advances that are happening.